Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project. More specifically, in this instance, the work in progress Philips CD-i core. Just a few days ago, the digital video cartridge got a big update, and while it is not complete and is not perfect, a lot more games are going to be playing, and you're going to have a lot more fun with a lot more titles. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is Thunder in Paradise is booting and you can get into the game. The bad news is, unfortunately, this is what it's going to look like when you are in there. Basically, the heads-up display is playing, all of the sprites are animating, but the actual video in the background, unfortunately, is not going to be included. And if you've never played Thunder in Paradise before, I can't stress enough, this is one of the best cheesy FMV games ever made, and with Hulk Hogan being included in the mix, you know you're in for a good time. So even though this isn't actually running on the CD-i core, this is the DOS version of the game, or the Windows version of the game. It is one of those things, once this thing actually works on MiSTer FPGA, take it from me, you have to play it. It is such a random and weird vibe. You're going to absolutely love it and laugh at it all at the same time. But right now, it boots, it just doesn't work completely. But let's move over to the 7th guess, because this is another game that we haven't yet been able to feature on the CD-i testing series because the digital video cartridge really didn't exist in the code, and of course it wouldn't work. Now you will see here there definitely is some glitching at the bottom of the screen. You're getting two mirrored images of what you're actually seeing drawn to the screen, and it has a lot of weird colors, but the actual video playback, at least in the storybook area, does seem to be working relatively well. And I get it, 7th Guess is an old game, it's an old point and click game, but it is one of those absolute classics of the era, and it is one of the better games on the Philips CD-i that's going to use the digital video cartridge. And trust me, we got some even weirder footage coming up, so don't leave this video, because I'm going to show you the weirder side of CD-i now that we have the DVC cart actually working, at least in its rudimentary implementation. What I'm seeing right here just does look good. The video is playing back, everything looks correct, minus the actual garbage content at the bottom of the screen. Not sure if that's some sort of buffer issue or it's otherwise not actually decoding the video properly. We'll have to wait and see how that works. But the CD-i core definitely is getting a lot better, and even though for all of the cores of MiSTer FPGA probably has the least amount of library that you might want to play, for preservation purposes alone, it is still awesome. And it's not to say that there isn't anything to play on the CD-i. We've definitely shown some games like Burn Cycle before, which I do think are worthwhile, but you'll see here the game is just a little bit hung up, takes a little bit of time to load every once in a while, and it's definitely going a little bit slower than the actual unit, but I'm sure soon it'll definitely get better. But let's move on to the next game in the video testing series. This is Mutant Rampage Body Slam, and it's definitely going to be one of the better games on the CD-i. And while it won't make any best beat 'em up games list of all times, it is a fun time, and it does seem to be working relatively well here on the core, up until the point in time that it's just going to freeze completely. And this is a game that has a fun soundtrack, but doesn't actually have any music playback, at least in my testing so far. Some of the games are going to have no audio whatsoever, others are going to have perfect audio, and some are going to have a lot of clipping and distortion. So if you do want to test this core and you haven't yet, I would highly recommend you leave your volume very low to make sure that things sound correct, or at least aren't clipping your speakers before you actually turn the volume up. And if you are wearing headphones testing the core, I would just say don't wear headphones when you test the core. And big thanks to Andy D for helping with the captures this week as well. He sent me a headphone warning on some of the clips, and he was 100% right. But you'll see here, this game just seems to be working exactly as it should, minus the audio. Everything is playing and rendering correctly, but you'll see here in just a moment, once we actually go to transition from this screen to the right, the game is basically just going to black out, and it's not going to run any further than that. So definitely not a game that you can finish playing. Once you actually end up loading into this next area, the screen goes black and nothing ever happens after that. Let's move over to Space Ace. This is a game that doesn't really have much audio. It starts to play but drops out, but as far as the video playback is concerned, this seems absolutely perfect to me. But I do not have a CD-i to test here, so if you do and you played Space Ace, leave me a comment down below, because the frame rate seems correct. I don't see any distortion or corruption in the video whatsoever. If you told me this was just a capture of an HDMI modded CD-i, if that even is a possibility, I'm not sure, I would 100% believe you. And that's kind of the thing about testing these cores. Even though the actual code for the digital video cartridge isn't done, some games will function 100% perfectly fine while using it. Other games won't work whatsoever, and I'm sure it's just down to what actual functions they used on that hardware. But Space Ace gets all the way to the splash screen, and then we'll load into the game, no issues whatsoever. But right now, it kind of feels a little bit laggy, so sometimes an input might be a little bit hard to hit. It's one of those things, the CD-i doesn't have the best controls in the world, and even though this is a great port, sometimes these games can be a little bit hard to play. quality. And it's one of those things. I do love these FMV time games, and Space Ace is definitely a fun one, and seeing it run on the actual CD-i core right now is definitely great to see, and I can't wait to see how this improves in the future. But tell me down below if you ever played Space Ace and what do you think? I would be very curious. But let's move over to some of the weirder things right now. This is just basically a German CD-i that has some sort of content on it. I have absolutely no idea why some of these things existed. It was basically used as an educational device as well. So you'll see here a couple old people just hanging out in their kitchen. But there's also going to be a clip of a dude looking into what seems like a crystal ball, but it's just one of those electric plasma balls that you can buy back in the day at the mall. But it works and it is showing video. But another quote-unquote game that is working right now and does have enough audio for me to give you a sample is going to be Clue. And trust me, the audio in here just sounds good. There's no clipping or issues whatsoever, so don't worry, I would never put that in a video and make you listen to it. And even though Clue is a fun game, again, basically just focusing on the FMV here and that digital video cartridge, everything does seem to be playing back as you would expect it to. I haven't seen any issues. But go ahead and listen to the voiceover quality here. Hear the actual audio being played back on the CD-i and the DVC cart, and then leave me a comment down below and tell me if it sounds accurate to your ears. But enjoy, and I'll be right back with more.
They say that the hooded Madonna was cursed, that she brought bad luck to all who owned her. Mr. Body laughed at them. It was only a picture of a lady in a silver frame. But Mr. Body kept that picture locked away in his study. Everybody knew that the Madonna was valuable, but there was more to it than that. The trouble began when Miss Scarlet decided to copy the picture. Perhaps it would have turned out differently if the Madonna had been on public show, or if its previous owner had not felt so bitter at having to part with it, or there weren't those who hoped that the picture would never be seen again. Perhaps the Madonna was cursed, after all.
I mean, honestly, the audio sounds good there, but if you are going to test the score again, just leave the headphones on your desk. But moving over to Hanna-Barbera's cartoon Carnival, this is a quote-unquote game. It does require the digital video cartridge, and it is working here currently on the core. But that really is the reality of the CD-i. The library is all across the board, completely random. For every game, like a Mutant beat 'em up, you're going to have something like this one right here, which is basically just a set of children's-style mini-games. And that's kind of why the CD-i kind of gets poked fun at, because it really didn't know what type of hardware it actually wanted to be back in the day. Was it a digital kiosk that was used in businesses to train people? Was it a video game console? Was it an edutainment console? Well, the thing was, it was kind of all of those things all at once, because Philips was really struggling to get an install base, so they basically tried to sell and market this thing to anyone who would actually adopt it, whether that was business, schools, or home entertainment for a game console use. But unfortunately, clearly none of those markets actually worked, and the CD-i just kind of went away. But interesting story, the 3DO company tried to sell the 3DO M2 design to Philips as a complete video game console that they could actually have to be a sequel to the CD-i, but of course Philips never took them up on that. And moving over to Golgo 13, this is another game, or air quotes game, that is working now on the CD-i core, but this basically really isn't a game whatsoever, and you are seeing it load up in real time. This game is just absolutely slow, and even though it has some fun animations, they're basically just scanned in completely from some of the manga, so I'm not really even sure what they added to this game that would be new compared to just reading a manga or playing any other Golgo game out there. But it is a test, and it is something that is functioning here. But if you want the best Golgo 13 game out there, just pop over to MAME and load up to 3 like on Sniper games on PlayStation 1 based hardware. Those are the best, because right here you're going to see this is just kind of like a trivia contest. This game is impenetrable because it's completely in Japanese, but it is a game before this core that would not load up whatsoever, and that's the reality. PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn have these weird games as well, so not really judging the CD-i, just saying not a fun game, but definitely something that does work. Now moving over to games that actually are fun, this is clearly Dragon's Lair, and just like Space Ace, it's going to basically do everything you need it to do on the core, and I would say maybe the more charming of the two games compared to Space Ace as well. If you don't have nostalgia for Dragon's Lair, if you haven't played it before, there's not going to be anything here on the CD-i version of the game that is going to convince you to play it if you didn't play it in the arcades back in the day or fell in love with it later on in life. But it is, again, another title that is working on CD-i and is using the digital video cartridge to its full extent. So definitely one, if you want to test it, you can check it out. But that's basically the test here for the new CD-i core. The digital video cartridge isn't 100% complete, but anything that can basically show you somebody going to the hospital and talking about the usage of phones and cell phones in the world has got to be a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. But all jokes aside, it's a super useful test to talk about the digital video cartridge, and I love seeing a cell phone in a car here because I still remember my father, who was a dentist, having a car phone, and it definitely never left the car because it didn't work anywhere else. But we're done. Go grab the core if you want. It's on Unstable Nightlies, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.